Hey, it's Coach Reeves. Today we're going to factor. I know, tough thing. Some people don't like factoring, but I think we're going to work this together. We're going to be okay. All right, a couple of things I want you to remember. All right, when we start factoring, no matter what we do, no matter what the problem is, you always see if you can take out a greatest common factor. Now, we just got through doing a worksheet previously where we practiced taking out the greatest common factor, but you need to remember, always, every problem, see if you can take out a greatest common factor. All right? A lot of these, not so much today. A few of these we will, and we'll see them as we go. All right? Problem number one. We have a trinomial. It's always good to count how many terms you have, because sometimes that will tell you which way we're going to factor a problem. But this is 1, 2, 3 terms. It's a trinomial. So, all right, so when you look at this, I would like for you to look at the back sign. I'm going to ask you to look at that back sign. That is a positive 84. All right, so there's two ways to get a positive number. You can either go a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative. So when we see that this back sign is a positive number, this tells me that when I factor into two parentheses, my signs in here are going to be the same. I'm not talking about these signs in the problem. I'm talking about when we factor, my signs will be the same. So if this is a plus sign, the signs are the same. We look forward, and this says that they're both going to be minuses. That will tell you what you can put in the parentheses. Now we're going to break down the b squared. Everybody know that b squared can be b times b. But we need to figure out how we can break down this 84. So I like to come over here and say plus 84, because it is a positive 84. And since it's a plus 84, that plus sign tells me I will add. I'm going to find, and I'm going to add my two factors. They're going to add up to 19. Now, I may not know all my factors. Matter of fact, finding the factors is kind of tough for me. All right, I could come through here and I could say, yes, I know that 1 times 84 is 84. I could go 2 times 42 is 84, but I don't know the rest of them. I mean, you can do this, you can go through your calculator, you can go by hand, you can work it, but I'm going to show you a way, because sometimes we're going to do a problem where the numbers get really big, and you would have a lot of factors. So let me show you how you can use your graphing calculator to do this, all right? So, on my graphing calculator, we're going to go into the graph mode. We're going to go to the graph mode, we're going to put an equation. And here's all I'm going to ask you to do. The number we're looking at is 84. So we're going to type in 84 divided by x. Your number that you're looking at, 84 divided by x. You hit enter. We're not looking for a graph. It's not going to show up on the screen. But here's what's going to help us. We're going to type in Control T. We're going to hit the control button. This over here, this blue button, we're going to go Control T for table. And look what it gave us. It gave us all of these factors. 1 times 84 is 84. 2 times 42. 3 times 28. 4 times 21. And we can scroll down. And we have 5 times 16.8. We don't want the decimal. We have 6 times 14. We have 7 times 12. Okay? So we go back to, we know this will help us. So we go back to our problem, and we're looking for a combination, and it turned out that we had on that table 7 times 12. 7 times 12 is 84, but if we add them together, if we add these together, it's going to be our middle term. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for two factors that when you multiply them, it's 84, but when you add them, it will give you your B number, your middle term of 19. So we're going to put our 7 and our 12 in our parentheses, and we are done. Does it matter where you put the 7, where you put the 12? No, because my signs are the same. It does not matter where you put these. Okay? So we're going to practice using that calculator. We're going to do some more factoring. We're going to do about 5 more problems so you get more comfortable with this. All right, another problem. Here's my situation. Now this one is not a plus sign. This sign is a negative sign. Now how do you get a negative when you multiply? Either a positive times a negative or a negative times a positive. The signs have to be different. So when your back sign is a negative, it tells you that your signs will be different. So we set up our parentheses for my answer, and this says the signs are different. It says somebody has to be positive, somebody has to be negative. Now, does it matter what you put first? Can you put the plus, then the minus, or can you put the minus and the plus? It does not matter. The signs have to be different, okay? We know we're going to break down the x squared. The x squared is going to be x times x. Over here, my back number. At the very back end, my back number, my C value, is a negative 42. Now, on the other problem, the previous problem, this was a plus sign. It was a positive 84. And a plus sign meant to add. Well, this is a minus 52. We're going to subtract to find our combination. We're looking for numbers that when you multiply them together, it will give you 52. But when you subtract them, it will give you a 9. So we know that's 1 times 52 is 52. 2 times 26 is 52. 3 times 14 doesn't work. Does not work. That'll only get me to 42. So 3 does not work for me. But I keep working and I find out that 4 times 13, that works for me. 4 times 13 is 52. And look what it does. We're looking for a combination that when you subtract them, you get the number 9. 13 minus 4 is 9. But here's another thing you can remember that would help you, okay? This says the signs are going to be different. The bigger number needs to be negative because I need to end up with a negative 9 in the middle. So we're going to put the negative with the bigger number because a positive 4 minus 13 equals negative 9. What if I put the negative with the wrong place? What if I did this? What if I put the negative with the 4? Well, what's a negative 4 and a positive 13? A negative 4 and a positive 13 is a positive 9. And that's not what I want in the middle. I need a negative 9. This tells me that I did my signs incorrectly. So this has to be the positive. This has to be the negative. So look, the positive goes with the 4. So there's where the 4 goes. The minus or the negative goes with the 13. This goes here. And this is how you factor that. Okay? Now again, could you go to the calculator and put this in? And could I say y equals 52 divided by x? And then go Control T? Sure, I could do that and it could give me this. All right? If I'm not good at coming up with these combinations, yes, you go to the graph mode, put in your number divided by x, and hit Control T. Got it? All right, let's try another problem. All right, so we're going to have 4 terms this time. We're going to go factor by grouping. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. So whenever we see 4 terms, no matter what, we're going to use a method called grouping. So we're going to group the first 2 together. We're going to group these 2 together, these 2 terms, and we're going to group those 2 terms together. And now, just like on the last worksheet we did, previous worksheet, we're going to take out the greatest common factor. We're going to look for numbers and variables that they have in common. So in this problem, I have 15 and I have a 25. We're looking for a number that goes into both of those, the biggest number that goes into both of those 2 terms. And we're going to say 5. 5 goes into both of these numbers. But they also have an m in common. They both have an m, but do you remember what happens if they have a variable in common? On the last worksheet, we want the smallest exponent. So we want the biggest number and the smallest exponent. So this is going to give me an m squared. They have that in common. We need to figure out what to put in the parentheses because we're factoring now. So remember what I said, I would like for you to come in and I would like for you to go divided by 5m squared. Divided by 5m squared. Divide by your greatest common factor. 15 divided by 5 is 3. M to the third over m to the second. Remember I taught you we said we could subtract. That's going to leave me with m to the first. Plus 25 divided by 5 is a 5. Close this off because m squared over m squared, these can cancel. There is my factored form. I took out my greatest common factor and factored that. Now look at this. What do I have in common? They both have a negative sign. So we're going to factor out a negative for sure. The number, what number goes into both of these? The number 2 goes into both of those. And then we come in, let me close this off here, get it started, and we're going to come in and we're going to say we're going to divide by negative 2. Divide by negative 2. A negative divided by a negative will be a positive. 6 divided by 2 will be a 3. I don't have anything to cancel with the m, so it's going to be an m. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So in this grouping, when we're grouping, we're hoping that this happens. It doesn't have to happen every single time, but most of the time when we give you 4 terms, we're not trying to trick you. This is going to happen. Look at these 2 parentheses. These are the exact same thing. So part of my final answer, I will put this as 3m plus 5 in one parentheses, and then I put my GCFs, our greatest common factors, in my second parentheses. What do I have as a greatest common factor? I have 5m squared, and I have a minus 2 or a negative 2. This is my factored form. Please don't do this. Watch this. A lot of people are tempted because there's 1, 2 of these. They're tempted to try to put a little baby 2, an exponent 2 right here. That's not what we want. That makes your problem incorrect. Put these as just one term. Just push these together and there's just one of them. That's all you need. You don't need a squared. You don't need 2 of them. But then you take your leftovers, your greatest common factor, and you put them into a parentheses. Okay? This is how you do 4 terms. When you see 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, we're going to turn it into a grouping problem. We're going to do it this way. All right, let's try another one. All right, it says factor for each, completely check for a greatest common factor. Every time, remember what I said, no matter what, we're going to try to check for a greatest common factor, for a number that goes, or a variable that goes into every term. On this problem, I'm thinking the number 5 goes into everybody, but not every term has a variable. So my greatest common factor is only going to be a 5, and I need to figure out, determine what to put inside the parentheses. So we're going to divide by 5, divide by 5, divide by 5. My 5's will cancel, and that'll turn into n squared. I get a minus sign. 75 divided by 5 is going to give me 15 n. Plus sign. 250 divided by 5 is a 50. Now we have factored out our greatest common factor, but we are not done. We need to keep working this problem. This is just like problem number 1. It's very similar to this. I'm going to ask you to keep the 5 coming down, but we're going to set up our 2 parentheses. We're going to factor this. I'm going to ask you to look at the back sign. That is a plus sign. Since it is a plus sign, it tells me my signs will be the same. These signs, not these. These signs were going to be the same. This tells me what they're both going to be. This says they're both going to be minus signs, so I put a minus in here. I break down the n squared as going to be n times n. My back number is a positive 50. Since it is positive, we're going to add to find our combination. We're going to add to find this number here. We're looking for numbers that when you multiply them together, they give you 50, but when you add them, they will give you a 15. So we have 1 times 50. I have 2 times 25. 3 does not work. It does not go evenly. 4 does not work. It does not go evenly. But 5 does. 5 times 10. And look at that. 5 times 10 is 50. And 5 plus 10 is 15. This is the combination that I want. 5 and 10. Look for your greatest common factor. Always try to check to see if you have a greatest common factor, and then go through your process. Okay? Let's try a couple more. All right, so this is going to be a little bit tricky. All right? It says factor each completely. We're going to use the box or the grouping method. Okay? So let me show you how to do this with the box method. Okay? I'll tell you what, we'll go grouping. Because we've already learned grouping, I'm going to show you something called grouping, how to use it with a trinomial. All right, so what I want to do is I want to set my parentheses. Can I take out a greatest common factor? Will 5 go into anything? No. They don't have a number that in common, so I do not have a greatest common factor here. So I'm going to set my parentheses. That's a plus sign. My signs are going to be the same. This tells me they're both going to be minuses in here. Okay? But we're going to set up what's called grouping. I want you to copy this term right here, 5n squared. And I'm going to put the plus 63. I'm going to put it way back over here at the back end. Plus 63. Notice that I have this huge gap in the middle. Okay? We need to put 2 things in here. Because remember how we said we're going to use 4 terms. We use grouping with 4 terms. The first and second term, the third and fourth term. Okay? So we've got to create something in here. We have to create the second and the third term. So I'm going to ask you to multiply these together. 5 times 63. 5 times 63. The front coefficient, and the back term. We multiply those together. When I multiply these together, I get the number 315. That's the combination I need to find. I know it's a positive 315, and we're going to end up adding. Geez, I don't know all those combinations. Remember what we said, we can go to the calculator. All right, so we're going to go to the calculator. Let's start over, okay? I'm going to go here, new. No, we're going to go to a we need a graph. We need to graph, not calculate, but graph. What was my number? 315. So I'm going to put in 315 divided by x. And I'm going to hit enter. We're not going to see anything on the graph. Please don't panic. But what we do now is go Control T for table. So we go Control T for table. These are all my combinations. Okay? But let's go back and check our problem real quick. I'm looking for a combination that's going to multiply and give me 315, but added together, it needs to add up to 52. My 2 terms need to add up to 52. So back in the calculator, I'm looking 3 and 105 does not add up to 52. So I'll keep scrolling down. 5 and 63, now that adds up to 68. 7 and 45, look at this combination right here. 7 plus 45, that adds up to 52. That's the combination we were hoping for. 7 and 52. 7 and 45 to add up to 52. So we go back to our graph, our work. The numbers we're going to use are 7 and 45. We'll put this in our space right here. We're going to say minus Remember we said our signs are going to be both minus. Minus 7n. We have to use that variable. We have to use this variable. Minus 45n. Okay? So now we group it. We go the first two terms together, the second two terms together. We're going to take out our greatest common factor. We did it earlier. We're going to take out our greatest common factor. These have an n in common. And we're going to divide by n. That's going to give me 5n minus 7. There's that parentheses. I'm hoping that I end up with 5n minus 7 over here. I'm looking, the lead term is negative. Remember how we talked about greatest common factor on the last worksheet? If the lead term is negative, you have to factor out a negative. So we're going to factor out a negative. And what number goes into both of these? It turns out it's a 9. It's a negative 9. And then when I factor out the negative 9, I get a 5n minus 7. This is good news because these two parentheses end up being the same thing. They're the exact same thing. So when we go to our final answer, we're going to say 5n minus 7. That goes in the first parentheses. And then your greatest common factors go in the second parentheses. What do I have left over? I have an n minus 9. This is how you factor. This is called grouping. Now, when can you use this? You can use it almost any time, but we like to use it the most when I have a number in front of my x squared or my n squared, all right? When my a value is bigger than 1. We like to say a is bigger than 1. This number is bigger than 1, so we have to use the grouping method, or I'm going to show you what's called the box method, okay? And I'm going to let you choose. This is called the grouping method. Now I'm going to show you the box method. All right, so I have another problem here. So the numbers are a little bit smaller, but I'm going to show you how to use what's called a box method, okay? Do we have a greatest common factor here? Is there anything that goes into all three of those numbers? No. Look at your a value. This is my a value. Is my a value greater or bigger than 1? Yes. Then we're going to say, hey, you probably need to use grouping or the box method. All right? So, look at this. We're going to set our parentheses. This says the signs are going to be the same. Then this tells me they're both going to be pluses inside my parentheses. My final answer should look something like that. All right, so we're going to go to what's called the box. We're going to draw a box. I'm going to ask you to put this guy in the top left. That first term goes in the top left. 8x squared. I'm going to ask you to take this guy, the last term, and I'm going to ask you to put him in the bottom right. That's where they have to go. And now I'm going to ask you, just like on the previous problem, we're going to ask you to multiply. What is 8 times 9? I need you to multiply the leading coefficient and the back number. I need you to multiply these together. And 8 times 9 should give me a positive 72. Since this is a positive 72, since it's positive, we're going to add. We're going to add to find our combination. What's our combination? Well, it has to multiply. When you multiply them, it has to give you 72. But when we add them, it has to add up to 18. So let's do some combinations. I know these. I'm your math teacher, but you can go to the calculator and remember how you can put it in as a graph and go Control T. But we have 2 times 36. No. 3 times 24. No. That's 27. I need to get to 18. I have 4 times 18. No. 5 does not work. 5 will not go evenly. 6 times 12. Yes. 6 times 12 is 72. 6 plus 12 is 18. So we're going to put this as 6x. Please use the variable, the designated variable, and 12x. Does it matter where you put the 6x and the 12x? No. You can flip-flop those. It does not matter where you put those in which boxes. Okay? Now, similar to the other problem, we're looking for greatest common factors. Greatest common factors. All right, so what do I have here? Is there a number that goes into both of these? What's the biggest number that goes into both of these? And hopefully you say, Coach, 4. 4 would be your greatest common factor. It goes into both of those. Do they have a variable in common? Yes, they have an x in common. Across the bottom, is there a number in common right here? Do they have a number in common? You would say yes. The number 3 goes into both of those. Then going up, do they have a number in common? And you would say yes. The number 2 goes into both of those. And then you say yes, they have an x in common. The variable x goes into both of those. And then you come here and you say, what number goes into both of those? And you can say the number 3 goes into both of those. And now you have just factored. That's the box method. So you would come over here and you would say, in one parenthesis, you would say 4x plus 3. Right here, 4x plus 3. In the other parentheses, you would say 2x plus 3. That's a way just to organize your process, your thoughts. There's 2 ways you can do it. You can do the grouping method, or you can do the box method. Your choice. You got to pick what you like the most. Okay? Now, I'm telling you, this is what really bothers some people. Some people don't understand factoring, and they have issues with this stuff. And this is why this is a tough concept, and this test will be kind of tough for some people. Please practice and ask questions. All right, let's try another one. All right, it says factor each, completely check for a greatest common factor. So looking at this problem, I have 32k to the third, 308k squared, minus 120k. I don't know. I'm going to try the number 4. I'm just going to try the number 4. I don't know for sure. I would have to play around with this just like you would. These are big numbers, okay? But I'm going to factor out the number 4 and see if it goes into everybody. But look at this. K, K, K. I know they all have a K. But remember what we said. We're going to pick the smallest exponent. 3, 2, 1. So we're going to just go K to the first power. We're going to put our parentheses, and we're going to divide by 4k. (32) divided by 4 is 8. K to the third, k to the first. When I subtract them, I get k squared plus 308 divided by 4. Not sure. Not sure. I don't know what to do. So I tell you what. I'm going to do this. We'll go to our calculator. I'll let you help. Okay? Home. We'll go to calculate. We'll say 308 divided by 4. See if it works. Turns out it's 77. So it does work. Okay? So we're going to go here. And we're going to say that 308 divided by 4 is 77k. Because k squared over k will reduce to the k. Minus 120 divided by 4 is 30. The k's cancel. I have a trinomial. But look at your a value. My a value right here, that a value is greater than 1. So for the trinomial right here, I could either do the grouping method or I could use the box method. Okay? I'm just going to do this with the box method. Just you can make that choice. All right? So let me give you some room to work, okay? We know this is going to be 4K. We're going to go to 2 parentheses. But look at your back sign. Look at that back sign. That is a negative. And when your back sign is negative, it tells you that your signs will be different. The signs are going to be different. One of your parentheses has to be a plus. One has to be a minus. You have to remember that. All right, so let's go to a box. Let's draw a box real quick. In this first box, we're going to put 8k squared. In the back box, we're going to put a negative 30. In here, we got to find a combination. I don't know what to put. So we're going to multiply this first term and the back term. This first coefficient and this back coefficient. We're going to say 8 times negative 30 is a negative 240. And because it's a negative, we will subtract. We will subtract to find our combination. And what do? When the numbers are subtracted, they need to equal 77. So look at this. 1 times 240. When you subtract 1, that gives you 239. 2 times 120. So when you subtract, you're at 118. We're getting closer. 3 times 80. What is 80 minus 3? 77. There's our combination that we want. 3 and 87. But the problem is, the signs are going to be different. I need to end up with a positive 77. I need to be a positive 77. So which one of these is going to be a minus or a negative? Which one is going to be positive? Well, since we want it to be a positive 77, the 80 has to be positive, the 3 is going to be negative. So we put a positive 80k and a negative 3k. So we go over here and we say, all right, what number goes into both of these? The number 8 goes into both of those. And look, k squared, k, they have a k in common. Down here, look at this. This has a negative, that has a negative. They have a negative in common. What number goes into 3 and 30? The number 3 goes into 3 and 30. Going up, I have 8 and negative 3. There is not a number that goes into both of those. But they do both have a k. They have a k in common right here. Over here, 80 and negative 30. What number goes into both of these? The number 10 does. The number 10. Do they both have a negative sign? No, they both do not have a negative sign, so you can't put them having a negative in common, so you have to go plus 10. If they both don't have a minus, you have to go plus 10. Now look at your combinations. 8k minus 3. It goes into parentheses with the minus sign. K plus 10. It goes with the plus sign. And there's your answer. Your original 4k that you had in common, k plus 10, 8k minus 3. That's how you work that problem. Okay? Let's see if I have any more for you to go. That's it. That's all the examples for this worksheet. This is a change. This is tough. Okay? You did a little bit of factoring in Algebra 1, but now we're taking it to the next level. I can understand if you get stuck. All right? You need to attend the Zooms. You need to try. You need to tap in. You need to ask questions. All right? You need to work through this. This is a tough unit. All right? But please don't quit. Don't get frustrated. Don't shut down. Please ask questions so we can help you. Good luck.